Welcome back. Our next thing is going to be seeing what condition this engine's in. So let's dig into it. Got to remove the axe head, which is vitally important. I'm reliably informed by a neighbour that this is a hummingbird feeder, not a really trick UFO looking air filter as I thought. So I won't be putting that on eBay. I'm making a fortune. So, smooth. So I've got a breaker bar and a socket. I have gone with a metric socket, even though that this is standard, because I'm just rock and roll like that. But it's about the right size. So, let's get it. The reason I'm using a breaker bar and not a ratchet is you tend to favour going in one direction too much with a ratchet. And a breaker bar allows me to rock back and forth, which is what I want to do, just to see if this will actually move. And if it doesn't, I'm not going to use the whole strength of this either. This is a lot of leverage. I just want to see if those rings are bound. Yeah, bad news, rings are bound. So, next step is going to be pull the plugs, get some oil in it, something just in there to lubricate those cylinders and make sure that we're not going to do more damage by doing this. If I just continued wrenching on that, I could probably get it to come undone, but it would do a lot of damage in the process. Normally, before you do this, a really good idea, and if I was doing this and we weren't on camera and I had time, I would get an airline or a vacuum cleaner and a brush, and I would blow all around these spark plug ports, because this will have, and does have, a lot of rubbish all around that spark plug bottom, and as soon as you loosen it by taking these out, it's just going to funnel straight into the cylinder. Swap over to the lazy man tool. And even turn it in the right direction. I'm guessing that they're not easy to see on camera, but they're slightly sooted up. Nothing too terrible on the first cylinder. Okay, so that one's interesting. We may or may not have focus, it's not that big of a deal. Okay. Yeah, you can probably remove your hand now.
Mm.
Okay. So yeah, so you can see clearly that's had water on it.
Yeah, because it's all rusty.
Yeah, it's manky in it.
Yeah.
So water has come in through this carburetor, it's gone in through the intake manifold, and the way it's sat with the engine turned over and the valves meant that water is poured into that cylinder. So we know that cylinder number 2, so far, is the worst. So that's just running rich. It's just got a little bit of soot on it. Same as one, really. Same deal. So we have one cylinder that is pretty bad. And because I'm a composite professional, I'm just going to rub the dust out of there. I was looking for some MMO, and for some reason I don't have any Marvel Mystery Oil right now, but I do remember that the Jeep came with a free carton of... Let's try that again, because it's not a carton. I was looking for some Marvel Mystery Oil, and I don't have any for some reason, but I remembered the Jeep came with a free can of PB Blaster. And that must be for a reason, so let's see if this works. Oh, that's the good stuff. At the moment it appears to be spraying Let me bring the camera around so we can see what we're doing. So at the moment it's just spraying a fine mist of absolutely nothing.
Free empty can.
Yeah, it does seem particularly empty. I don't think this is going to work. But we are going to try. I don't think it's going to drip in there, you see. Nope. And this will be too thick to pierce. So, I was wondering if I could make my own funnel. It's... Dope. I'm going to go get a funnel.
Well, at least it wasn't empty.
Yeah. Will be in a second. Funnel, 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 I need a funnel. Where do all the funnels live? Funnel, 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 funnel. I have a funnel. And in keeping with about at least a third of the tools I own, it came out of some old junk car I bought. This is the cylinder I really am worried about. I'm going to put all of that in there. We'll file that a little bit later. And back again. Lots of shots of me just wandering in and out with different colours.
Getting your steps in.
I have more blaster. There's a little bit more in there because I did get a lot. Oh, it's making fizzy noises. I think it should be around here so you can see what's going on, shouldn't you? I don't know, it's just a thought. Because it's alright for us, we've seen a ton of these engines. But people might think I'm just pouring this stuff into the ground. Okay, so we are going to have a little bit of a rock with this. I'm not expecting too much now, other than Lexi's coffee to fall off the side of this Jeep. But I am seeing a little bit of movement. But the sensible thing to do in this situation is not rush it. If I force this right now, I will end up breaking a ring, and then, you know, I mean, chances are I'll end up tearing this engine down anyway, but I want to get it running first, and if I break one of the rings right now, it's going to score the cylinder walls, and then I have to bore this engine out. And these aren't the easiest engines in the entire world to get oversized pistons for. They're really not. I would love to keep it at whatever size it is if I can. So I'm just going to leave this now probably 40 minutes to an hour. Let all this soak in. I'll put a little bit more penetrating fluid in that really bad cylinder. And then come back in another 20, and then we'll start rocking it again. So we'll see you in a few. It's been over 40 minutes now, and I need to check what's going on in these cylinders before I do anything else. So I've got a bore scope, and you'll be able to see on your screen now what we're doing. So we're going to have a look at the problem cylinder, cylinder number 2. and that does not look great in there at all. But more importantly, it's quite dry. That means all that fluid has leaked past the rings. We're going to go over to 3, and is not doing any real good for us unless it has freed them up and unseized them. But yeah, they're pretty nasty looking. So what I'm going to do is go back to a cylinder where I can see stuff without too much messing about, which is probably going to be this one. And what I'm looking for here is the top of that piston. Because when you move this bar, you can get movement. I can feel like I'm rocking it there, but you'll notice on this camera, that piston isn't really moving. And you can really fool yourself. So when you're going anti-clockwise, you could just be undoing the nut on the crankshaft, which is what I'm doing. If I go clockwise, I'm tightening that nut. You see, this is moving. It feels like the engine's moving over. You can get super excited by this. But you notice how that piston? Yeah, it's not moving. And all I'm doing is tightening that nut up. And eventually, with this longer bar, it'll just strip. So that's no good for anyone. So we're going to stop right there because we know nothing's happening. A way you can do this if you don't have a bore scope is put a pencil in the top of one of these cylinders or any little wooden dowel and check to see if it's moving. Because the important part is not you stripping the threads off your bolt at the bottom. Turn this off. The important part is not you stripping the threads off the bottom of that crank, it's actually getting these to free up. So now that we know that this thin penetrating oil is not sitting in that cylinder, we're going to pour something a bit thicker in and then we're going to wait again. A lot of guys love ATF for this. If I've got old ATF, something that's older than 10 years old, new old stock or something, I'll use that because it's still got a lot of detergent in it. There's an opposite thing going with ATF and oil. Modern oils have got a ridiculous amount of detergent in them now, which is why you can't use them with flat tappet cams as much. And ATF doesn't clean as well as it used to. Everything is all changing. So everything those old boys outside Napa tell you about ATF and acetone and all the rest of it still is vaguely true. But honestly, it's a lot of out-of-date information because the oils change. This oil I'm using here is a really nasty, unlabeled oil that came in some car I bought. And it was probably lying in the back. And I don't know what it is, but it's the perfect grade for this job. It exists. And we're bubbling. So what we're hoping, see this back cylinder is a really fun cylinder. This must be all the way up at the top because I can get very little into it, so I'm going to ram that back there. Oh, that one's nice and full. Cylinder 2 does not want to fill up. That honestly scares me a little. It shouldn't be taking that much oil because I could see on the bore scope. Oh. Be really glad you couldn't see what just came out the end of that oil. Yeah, that's... So there's something that people talk about a lot, which is when you buy those 55-gallon drums of oil, and it's sometimes can be an economical way of buying oil if you've got a few vehicles and you pull it out. A lot of the additives are meant to float to the bottom. So once it's been sat in your shop and you haven't moved it for 6 months, the top of that oil has almost no additives in it at all, and the bottom is just absolutely, it's got too much, and you absolutely can have too much additive of various types. So there's a school of thought, which I fully subscribe to, that says get the gallon or quart-sized bottles and shake them, before you put them in, and make sure that everything's mixed in properly. And don't really bother with those 55-gallon drums unless you have a really high turnover. Now, I'm just going to give this another wiggle. Yeah, it's stuck. So again, we're going to leave it a little bit longer and let that go through. All I've been doing is coming out here every 10 minutes or so, letting the oil soak in, and you can see right down there, there is a little white line on the crank pulley. Now, if you keep watching that white line as I waggle, you can see there is the tiniest bit of movement. Now, it could be that is the crank moving off on the Woodrug key, but I don't believe it is. I think it is actually starting to free up. So I just come out here and I do this for about a minute. It's extremely glamorous. And you see it's moving further and further. And then I put a little bit more oil in it and I let it soak. And doing that over and over again means that there is a chance to free this up. Now, full disclosure, I couldn't see the screen on the bore scope when we were out earlier. It's too sunny out here for me to see the screen. And I couldn't see exactly where it was sitting in on that cylinder, or truly how bad they were. I could see some rust, but it was only when I looked at the footage inside that I realised that, wow, this engine has had a lot of water in it. It's going to be an achievement if we get this engine to run as it is without having to strip it, bore it and rebuild it, because those cylinders are pretty special. But I'm going to just continue waggling for another few minutes before I put some oil in. We've had a really important development. So this crank is starting to move now. I don't know if you can come in and see it, Lex. So you see the white line, that is getting a fair bit of movement.
I'm not sure if I can see it on the camera.
Oh, okay, well, we'll see. Right, so if you can come around this side for me, I'm going to give it a good old wrench. So we're at that point where I think we can be a little bit less subtle. It's had, well, about 20 minutes of wiggling. Okay, right. You feeling positive?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
Let's go for it. It made woof noises.
Well, that's good.
Okay. You can hear the compression a little bit, can't you?
Yeah. Sounds like gurgling.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm amazed this is even turning up. I mean, those cylinders looked garbage. So it's a little hard to tell where you are as well with the bore camera on these. This is a flathead. Well, it's an F-head, which is an intake over exhaust engine. IOE, yeah. And the reason that these are called the F-heads is because if you look at the shape of the cylinder, it's actually in an F shape, where the intake and the exhaust are. And what should be in here is an L, which would be a flathead. And as a good friend of mine pointed out, it is a very silly naming convention. Drop me socket. Isn't it weird that a company called Snap-on, their sockets don't actually snap onto the breaker bars?
Well, they snap on, they just also snap back off.
Snap off, yeah, exactly. Oh, come on. Oh, it's making whoop noises. I think whoop is the best noise you can get out of an engine. Other than obviously running. That's a good noise too. I hope you guys at home can hear this, but that is cool. That is a very good noise. Ah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're going to make sure that we've got a complete rotation. So this is the point where I wish I had a ratchet instead of a breaker bar out here, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to turn it. I'll go get a ratchet. I'll be back in a second. It's a good job this junk isn't expensive, or this would be irritating. Okay, so I've got the top mark now, which I assume would be TDC. I didn't make the mark. And I'm going to turn it now over one full rotation. And we're back at the top again. And that's now making good noises. Did I leave? Yes. And now, like I said before, I can't see a lot here because of the sunlight. I will see this properly for the first time when I play this footage back. But aha. Okay, there we go. I just thought it might be better if I recorded it. You know, for that full viewing experience. I don't know what that is. Out here in the sun, it looks a lot like marshmallows, but that seems unlikely to me. And what that was muck on the end of my camera. Yeah, I'm just keep. So that I think has still got a lot of oil in it. So we're gonna put this in the entrance of here, just to the point where we can see it a little bit. And I'm hoping I'll be in far enough to see something turn over. Yeah. And you've got to be real careful when you do this, because otherwise you're going to crush your camera with the top of your piston. But I think it's just going to be, the layout of this F-head means that we're not going to get any kind of clear view of the piston or the cylinder walls or anything like that. So that's a useless waste of time. That's awesome. Okay, turn that off. But it's freed up, so we're going to go on to the next stage now. And the next stage is going to be seeing if we can get some kind of spark going in it. And then Lexi's going to pull a starter motor off something else that we've got here temporarily. And we're going to hope that the flywheels have the same tooth arrangement. And if we can get it to crank over on a starter and have a spark, fuel will be provided and she should run. We'll see. It's never going to run.
She will eventually.
Well, yeah.
That's how we do.
I decided to test these plugs in my spark plug tester. You don't see these machines around too often nowadays, but at one point they would have been in every mechanic's shop in the country. You set the points gap on the dial and you can view the spark in the mirror. These are all the plugs running at once before cleaning. As you can see, very inconsistent spark, wrong colour, everything's just wrong about it. So I clean these plugs up in the glass bead blaster, and this is afterwards. As you can see, a lot more consistent. They're still not perfect by a long way, but they are better.
I'm gonna take the starter motor off of this 1955 CJ5 and we're gonna see if it fits on the GPW.
We're really hoping it does as well, because we don't know if these things have a different flywheel. I know that these have like a T89 or a T90 or something, and GPWs, I think, are a T85? Who knows? Awesome, one down.
Sweet. I didn't even have to use the hammer.
Nice. Yeah, if you can't get an impact wrench in on something, if you use a brass mallet and just hit your wrench, the key thing is the impact, and it will make a heck of a difference. Okay.
I win.
You win. Let's get this thing over there.
Oh. My hands aren't clean enough to grab the mic. It's falling through the bottom of my shirt.
Okay.
Oh. Oops. Well, that was...
Okay. Well,
Oops.
let's go again. So that our mics have magnets on them, so. So we've learned a thing. We have lavalier mics arriving Monday, so we don't actually have to wear these transmitters really up high on our clothing in such a weird way. Until then, this is the way we're doing it.
I'm so graceful.
Very graceful.
Jinx. Okay. No. No dice.
Negative.
Oh! It did it again.
Oh. No, I think we're going to have to clip your mic on. There's one thing that we'll have to do. So,
I'm stuck.
okay.
I've got lots of issues happening right now. Somehow. Well, that didn't work, so now we need plan 2.
We can go with plan B if you like, but why didn't it work? This is a key piece of information we need to know.
Okay, this was hitting against the wall, and this was like shoving against the flywheel, I think.
So it's just the wrong shape starter motor. Okay, so I have no flat fenders. Jeeps of all sorts of shape, colours and creeds, but I don't have any flatties. And maybe this is a flatty thing. I don't know why it would be, but these should both be the same blocks. So I'm kind of confused, but it is what it is. They're both F134s. Without a starter motor, we are not going to be able to turn this over fast enough to get it to run, so I'm going to have to order a starter motor for it, and that's a pain, because that was the goal of this week's video. We wanted to get it for you so that you could see if this engine was going to run or not. I mean, we now know it turns over, and that's huge. It's just massive. That really increases our chance of getting this running. But it looks like our dream of getting this to run for you in this week's video has just come to an end. But we will get this drive shaft on, so we know that that's done. And we will get some parts ordered so that we can get on with it.
I'm gonna connect the drive shaft. I'm gonna hit my head first.
Probably, many times.
Usually.
At least once when she tries to get back up again as well, I would say.
Usually, yeah.
So we've temporarily solved the microphone issue. Don't know if you can see in left of shot, but Lexi's mic with the fuzzy thing on it is clipped to the side of the Jeep, which made me realise we probably wouldn't have picked you up all that well right at the start of this video. No! That may not have been my smartest plan.
Well, they can't all be.
No, we'll fix it in post, as I say, somehow. I'm going to try and find a better angle.
Okay.
Without having to lie on the floor. Oh, do you know what? That is definitely not a better angle. Somebody has put a rear axle in the way, which is extremely not useful.
Very much.
Yeah.
The good thing is it's all covered in oil, so everything's going on real smooth. Oh. That's not gonna work the way I thought it was. That's okay. We can come up with a better plan. The weird thing is how hairy everything is. That's something I haven't seen yet.
No, Harry wasn't something I was expecting. What kind of hair?
Huh?
What kind of hair?
I don't know.
Goat.
Ah, that explains it. Funny story, somebody has bent this, so now you can't get this in, so that's gonna have to be unbent.
Unbent?
Yeah.
That sounds technical.
Yeah, no, something, they might have hit it with the drive shaft maybe at some point.
Oh, hang on, you're about to have needles all over the floor. So that little cap there, this is a good learning experience. You'll see how, if Lexi stops moving it around, how it has loads of little needle bearings in it. Well, what they can fall out super easy. So typically when you have these off, you wrap tape around them. We've now filled that with grit, so not ideal to put back on. So we're gonna now straighten the thing that we need to straighten, try and get the grit out of that without all those needles falling out of it, and then come back.
I really wanted to get the drive shaft on today, but unfortunately the yoke is bent. We're gonna have to order a new one because we can't fix it and keep it in balance. Subscribe to our channel. Next week you can see us install the drive shaft and the compatible starter motor, and we will hopefully get this thing running for the first time after decades of it sitting in a field. And then what?
And then don't say and then what, so I can fade out.